Hello, I'd like to introduce you guys to the new Scotch Brite Clean and Strip XT Pro and XT Pro Extra Cut discs. The purple one here is XT Pro, the green one XT Pro Extra Cut. Main difference between the two of them, the XT Pro has silicon carbide mineral, whereas the XT Pro Extra Cut has aluminum oxide mineral. Big application differences would be the silicon carbide works really well for light rust, paint, mill scale, light to medium mill scale, and applications where you don't want to scratch or damage any of the base metal. The Extra Cut is a really good disc for removing rust pits, thick paint, thick rust, and scenarios when you need to clean the coating off and then also clean up some of that metal that's underneath the coating. So here I want to walk through the two different types of rust I have laid out here. This one is what I would consider a light surface rust, and the silicon carbide version, XT Pro, works great for removing surface rust without damaging the metal underneath. If your part has thick rust and some deep rust pits, you're going to want to use the Extra Cut version in order to remove that rust and then also smooth out those rust pits underneath. The next application I'd like to highlight here is weld burn discoloration. So this heat discoloration, if you want to remove that on a stainless steel part and polish off that weld, we'd recommend using the Extra Cut version. And this Extra Cut is going to conform to that weld bead and bring that stainless steel weld to a nice polish. If you have an application where you need to remove light mill scale oils and prep a structural beam for adhesives, let's say for instance you're building a utility trailer, we would recommend using the silicon carbide version, XT Pro. Silicon carbide works a lot better on mill scale than aluminum oxide does. I'd like to run through the three attachment types for right angle grinders. The first one here for TN quick change discs requires a hub and faceplate. Now these discs will work with any customer's backup pad. The hub and faceplate I'm going to show you guys today here is our low profile hub and then our black hard faceplate. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to rotate these threads until this spindle lock button engages. And now that I have my spindle lock button in place, I'm going to thread on that hub. I'll tighten it most of the way by hand there, but I found it's easier to snap in the faceplate, and that way you can have a little bit more leverage to tighten it down further. Now that we have our backup pad on, to attach the discs, they just thread right on to that 5/8 thread on your grinder. You go till it's pretty snug, then you can release your spindle lock. To remove the disc, again engage your spindle lock and then the disc will spin right off. In order to take this hub and faceplate off, again we're using our spindle lock and we're keeping that faceplate on to get that added leverage. The next attachment type that we're going to walk through here is our Type 27 disc. This one requires the use of the two retainer nuts that came with the grinder. So what we're going to do is these retainer nuts, they do have an up and down, so we want to always make sure this little lipped side that has a flange on it is pointing upwards. So we'll engage our spindle lock here on our tool. If your tool didn't have a spindle lock, you can usually grab a section of that shaft with a wrench in order to hold it in place. In order to tighten down our first retainer nut here, we're going to use the spanner wrench that came with the grinder. Then we're going to set our disc on and make sure it centers itself on that little raised 7/8 inch lip. Lastly, we're going to put on that second retainer nut, again with the flange lipped portion facing upwards. I found it's easy to tighten it some of the way by hand, and then to make sure it's firmly and securely on, we'll use that spanner wrench to tighten it the rest of the way. In order to remove the disc, again I'm waiting until that spindle lock engages, and it's easiest to use the spanner wrench to break that retainer nut loose. The last attachment type that I want to walk through here is our brand new threaded quick change disc. It's referred to as Type 27 quick change. And for this disc, you don't need any retainer nuts. It can be attached to the grinder with no accessories needed. So again, engage your spindle lock or hold your shaft threads there with a wrench, and then you're going to grab the disc from the outer edge here and tighten it down firmly. To remove the disc, same thing, I'm grabbing that spindle lock and I'm unthreading the disc.